and whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the whole entire who wins the White House. The path to the White House runs straight through my state. So they're going to do everything they can. They're funneling tens of millions of dollars in TV advertising. They're making multiple trips to places like Georgia. And going back to your point about Biden, a lot of these states were out of play. Michigan was out of play. Georgia was just out of the game when Biden was in the race. She has made the race neck to neck. She is completely upended. We went from Trump +4 to Kamala Harris +2.
Thank you both for being with us. I wonder, Amy, first of all, the significance of Trump going back to the place where someone tried to take his life in July. I mean, just on a human level, it's very brave to go through that because it must have been a traumatic experience for him, clearly. But is this more about reminding everybody what he went through and he survived and showing that strength?
That's 100% what this is. This is a reset and sort of a hearkening back to what was both a terrible time for the campaign, and also their highest point so far, right? This was the moment where right before the debate, there was the assassination attempt that rolled into the debate, that rolled into the RNC. And this was really a moment in the campaign where, with Joe Biden still in the race, it became very clear that Trump was the front runner. And that's where the campaign's seeking to put him back in the front.
And Lindy, I mean, I guess it's because, so many people discussed after that assassination attempt that Trump was that front runner, against Biden. There was no turning it around. And then, of course, within a week, Kamala Harris is standing as president and she received the bounce. And I guess Trump's trying to claw that back.
Absolutely. He was caught flat-footed after the transition, and it took him a while to realize how to land those attacks against Kamala Harris. And now he's just making up lies about the border, about migrants eating pets. So it's just he's seeing the polls tightening across the 7 battleground states. 7 states are going to determine the outcome in this race. 3 in particular, and that's Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, where you can see Pennsylvania behind me right now. That's the blue wall. And whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the whole entire who wins the White House. The path to the White House runs straight through my state. So they're going to do everything they can. They're funneling tens of millions of dollars in TV advertising. They're making multiple trips to places like Georgia. And going back to your point about Biden, a lot of these states were out of play. Michigan was out of play. Georgia was just out of the game when Biden was in the race. She has made the race neck to neck. She is completely upended. We went from Trump +4 to Kamala Harris +2.
But ultimately, the path does run through Pennsylvania. And right now, odds are favorite that Pennsylvania is with no toss-ups, that Pennsylvania is in the Trump column. The Electoral College map, which really is so imperative, still has Trump with the lead. It's and I agree that Kamala Harris got, I would call it more of a nudge. I don't think she got enough of a bounce as an effect of jumping in this race. I don't think it was enough, and I think the campaign is actually plateauing now.
Interesting. What do both of you make, and maybe Amy, you pick up on this first, of Elon Musk appearing last night with Donald Trump? I just wonder how he's viewed in the US, because he's viewed as a slightly odd individual, clearly hugely successful, but slightly odd individual in this country. Amy, is this going to help Trump? How is he viewed?
Yeah, no, he's viewed as wildly successful, slightly odd individual here as well. I don't think it's so much Elon Musk. I think it is what's going to be happening at the gas pump. I think it's what's been happening, that inflation has not been under control at the grocery stores. And frankly, what is happening in the Middle East, what is happening on a foreign, around the world is going to be something that the Biden-Harris administration has to answer for. And I do not think that's going to be, given what we were just hearing this morning about Beirut, what's going on with Iran, that puts Americans very ill at ease. And this administration, including Vice President Harris, will be held accountable.
I think we need to hold the right people responsible for the situation. Benjamin Netanyahu visited Mar-a-Lago a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden, shortly thereafter, he's no longer engaging in ceasefire talks. We have to make sure that people understand there's a very close relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump. This is undeniable. And we have senior Democrats in the United States Senate, of all places, saying that Netanyahu is meddling in our elections. He's been meddling. This goes decades back. He did it during the Clinton era. He's doing it again. He wants to put his friend back in the White House, his friend Trump. So you want to talk about gas prices? You want to talk about inflation in the Middle East? Trump is stoking a lot of these fears. Inflation is now under 3%. And you know what? America bounced back more resiliently, more strongly than all nations on earth. Inflation is now under 3%. Yes, cumulative inflation is still a problem, but Kamala Harris understands that. And that is why she said she's going to go after the price gougers. She's going to go after the corporate predators so they cannot take advantage of the American people.
That's been 4 years and hasn't been working. And I think the American people are not going to dig. They're not going to dig as deep as that.
The president leads the agenda and he sets the tone. She can't break with him.
Go on, Amy.
Right. No, right. That's right. She can't. And Americans are not going to dig down and try to play a blame game with, is it Netanyahu versus Biden versus Trump? They're going to see what's going on in the world. They're going to feel ill at ease. They're going to see gas prices soar. And that's going to be happening in the next 3 weeks while people are voting. It's not just that people are going to the polls in a few weeks. They're voting right now. Early voting is on and has been going on for a couple of weeks.
Gas prices are actually lower than they have been in a very long time. And you talk about voting right now. People are going to remember who terrorized our Capitol on January 6th, who unleashed his thugs against 140 Capitol Police. This is something that I'm not going to move on. And millions of Americans, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Americans are going to remember who ransacked our Capitol. And we're on a British radio right now. So I just want to say our Capitol hasn't been attacked so gruesomely since the War of 1812. And who did that? Our own domestic terrorist, Trump. It was a terrorist attack. I'm not going to mince any words. That's frankly what happened.
I'm completely on board that January 6th and Trump's actions were reprehensible. And yet, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm just looking at the polls and I'm looking what's going on in the world and at home. And I think that there's a problem for Harris Walls.
Do you think there are different priorities amongst Republican and Democrat voters? I mean, clearly the economy is a big issue. We know that immigration is an issue. Kamala Harris has talked a lot about abortion. Do you think, Lindy, that there are different priorities or are Americans honing in on particular things no matter which way they're going to vote?
That's a really good point. I want to mention one quick thing in the economy. We just had a blockbuster jobs report. $254,000 jobs created. That is phenomenal. The stock market is thriving. It's soaring. People's 401k accounts are soaring. So I am not on board with the narrative that the economy is bad. It is not. It is improving. Yes, a lot of Americans suffered because of inflation, but we are on the right track right now. And going back to what you said about abortion, nothing else matters if women cannot control our bodies. And you have J.D. Vance running away from his national abortion ban. But yes, we have a screenshot that says he was in support of a national abortion ban. Trump is running away from Project 2025, but hundreds of his staffers were behind that very women policing, misogynistic agenda. And the American people realize that. And I want to say one thing. One of the most successful messaging campaigns of this entire election is the Democrats' ability to torpedo the reputation of Project 2025. It is now more unpopular than herpes.
Wow, that's quite a claim. Amy?
There was a poll that came out. It wasn't just me.
I don't support Project 2025. I never have as a Republican. So this has kind of been a boogeyman for the Democrats. And that's great. Congratulations on that.
But Amy, what about the issue of what Republicans... But Amy, what about the issues that are important to Republican voters? Are they the same as they are to Democrat voters? It is a lot about the economy, clearly.
Yeah, it is. That's what I'm saying. I do think that the abortion question will continue to plague Republicans. I don't know to what extent, and I don't believe to the extent of 2022. I think that the economy and what is happening overseas is going to, and immigration, which continues to stay in the top couple issues that Americans are talking about, will be the reason, barring something drastic, that Americans will go to vote on. And so I get that the Democrats want to talk about these things and are drawing that attention there. They should. This is a campaign. But ultimately, that is not what I'm hearing. That's not what I'm hearing when I'm at the grocery store. It's not what I'm hearing when I'm knocking on doors, which I do. It's just not what's out there.
Respectfully, you're assuming that if we run on the economy, that Democrats will lose. I respectfully disagree. Trump is the person
I don't
who
think the
penned
stock market is American.
multi-trillion-dollar tax cut for billionaires and corporations, undermining the middle class, which is the bedrock of American society. He's only out for his own campaign donors and for his the top 0.1% of America. He just doesn't give a blank about the American people. He just doesn't.
I appreciate you saying that.
Kamala
but the
Harris, on the other
economy
hand,
was
as
Hang on, Lindy. Go on, Amy.
comes from the middle class. She understands
Hang on,
the
Lindy.
pain
Go on,
and the
Amy.
striving of middle class Americans.
Go on, Amy.
I get what you're saying, and I'm just saying that that's not what Americans are going to feel. They know that the economy was much better under former President Trump, and I think they're going to go to the polls and be thinking about it.
I'm not on board with memory holding the final year of Trump's presidency when we had the most drastic job losses in American history, where we couldn't find toilet paper when we went to the store or bottles of water. He was in power for 4 years, not 3. Okay, so it's not fair to say we can only.
I'm not memory holding it.
It's interesting, though, for both
people
of
are
you.
going to look at, and that was a global pandemic.
Torpedoed our economy.
It's really interesting, actually, because we talk a lot here in the UK about perception versus reality. And sometimes what is actually happening isn't what people always remember. And I think that is one of the really interesting things, particularly when it comes to elections and the fact that people have got to remember back to Trump's time in office. One thing I want to ask you both before I let you go, because time is somewhat against us. Lindy, we know that you are a fundraiser. We've spoken to you many times about your fundraising and the struggles for Biden and how that had changed under Harris. It's always an interesting indicator, isn't it, of how much money is being given to a campaign. What's the situation at the moment for fundraising for the Democrats?
I'm so glad you asked. It's amazing. I've never had such fundraising success. And it really comes down to Kamala Harris and the energy behind her. And it's night and day. Just to give you guys a sense, it took me a year to raise $1 million for President Biden, whom I love, by the way. It took me a week to raise $2 million for her. And I've been consistently doing that. I just co-hosted her last fundraiser in Los Angeles. We had Stevie Wonder perform. It was just amazing. The energy was just so electrifying. And you know what? Her small dollar donations, the $20, the $5, they are just pouring in. The American people are speaking with their wallets.
Amy, what's the situation with fundraising for Trump?
Yeah, I mean, his fundraising is continuously strong. He's got a big war chest. And I do think fundraising is an indicator. And I do think that Kamala Harris, there's no doubt about it. She had monster fundraising because as the Democrat Party sort of let out a collective sigh of relief when she stepped in the race, simultaneously wallets opened. I can't even argue with that. I just think that, and looking at the numbers, I feel like the campaign is plateaued. And that's going to be a problem. They're going to have to figure out a way in the next few weeks to jumpstart this if Kamala Harris wishes to become the president of the United States.
It's really interesting to speak to you. Thank you both so much for your time. And I'm sure we will chat again in the weeks before the election. That's Amy Koch there, who is a Republican strategist. She was Minnesota's first female Senate Majority Leader. And we also heard from Lindy Li, a Democrat political strategist and fundraiser. And we should say huge thanks to Lindy. She stayed up till 1:30 in the morning to speak to us, which is commitment to the cause. So we're very grateful to her.
Absolutely.